Hello. Devvrat, can you confirm if I'm audible and visible?
Yes, Anish, you are.
Hi, Devvrat. We'll begin the session a little early. It's okay. People can join in as per their own convenience.
So,
Good evening, everyone. This is Anish, and I'm here on behalf of the National Law Training Institute. Today, we have a very special guest among us. We have Devvrat, who scored a very impressive rank of 104 in CLAT 2024. So, it's a known fact that more than freshers, droppers appear for CLAT, and more than people who get it, more than people who are actually in their 11th or who have just begun their preparation, people who actually make it to colleges and people who actually appear for CLAT are those who have already given their first attempt in the previous few years. So a lot of you asked your mentors about what should be an ideal strategy for people who are droppers, who do not have do not have the burden of school, and who do not have to coexist or balance their schools with CLAT preparation. So that is why we have Devvrat today, who was a dropper for CLAT 2024 and who cleared CLAT. And we are here to learn and listen to his strategy that he followed for CLAT 2024. So over to you, Devvrat. A little bit of introduction would be great because we didn't really have a chance to interact with you a lot. So tell us about yourself. Tell us about your preparation, how you started, where you prepared from. Over to you.
hi guys, my name is Devvrat Chudasma. I am from Vadodara, Gujarat, and I cleared CLAT 2024 with a rank of 104, and I got 98.75. I'll start from the beginning. So yes, I am a dropper. I gave CLAT last year too. I got around 3,300 last time, and where I got nowhere. So
Hmm.
this year it was kind of a do or die situation for me. So and that helps actually because for us droppers, there's no mental. I mean, there's mental baggage, but it's only if you take it on, and it helps a lot in like we can do a lot more in this time that we've been given. We can do more sums. We can practice quant more. We can do more passages. We can attempt more mocks, etc.
Yeah.
So should I start with the PPT?
Sure, sure. I hope you'll be addressing this question of mental baggage because,
Absolutely.
as you said, it's do or die for droppers. So a lot of people basically do not know how to cope with this mental pressure, peer pressure, and the pressure that they get from their parents that you've taken a drop year, you could have done something else. That opportunity cost that you have that comes along with a drop year. So
Actually,
do address that. Yeah.
so throughout the year, you'll absolutely there will be days where you will feel so guilty about your choices, and there will always be people to blame you.
Yeah.
But I'll address it later in detail. But basically, the thing is, you've got to be strong on your own, and that's just the fact.
Right.
My like your parents would help you. At least mine did. They gave me a lot of support, and then there was always Aditya and you from NLTI. So
Yeah.
NLTI helped a lot because of the mentorship sessions, and yeah, it's just I'll talk about it later in detail.
Sure. Cool. Also, can you tell us a little bit like what was the difference between your CLAT 23 preparation and your CLAT 24 preparation? Like what was the difference uh, that helped you get a rank of 104 from a rank of 3300?
So basically, I in my 2023 attempt, I only prepared for 1 month. And
Okay.
that was while I was skipping school. I took PCM in class 12th, and it was really
Also, you weren't sure that you are gonna do CLAT or
absolutely not. In my
okay.
class 11th and 12th, I was preparing for JW. I was in a legit coaching for it.
Hmm.
And
Right.
I gave JW last year and I got a good enough rank that got me
Hmm.
into an NIT. But I
Right.
still chose to attempt CLAT this year.
Okay. Right.
So
Then then
yeah,
I assume you would have even more baggage on your head that I am leaving NIT. I at least should get a good NLU this time.
yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. But
Right.
it's
Right.
all about the mindset.
Yeah.
There's two paths you can choose. Either you can be depressed about the fact and think about it, or
Hmm.
actually I wrote down a quote from James Clear, Atomic Habits. Have you read the book?
Yeah.
So it said, fall in love with the process rather than the product. Then you don't have to wait to give yourself permission to be happy.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
like we know that while preparing for CLAT, reading is an integral part of the preparation. So, reading these kind of books that helps a lot in dealing with the stress you'll
Hmm.
encounter. And
Right.
coming back to the preparation part, first of all, the main thing that I personally believe is you got to have a strategy, and then you need to have a efficient plan so that you can execute the strategy.
Definitely. Yeah.
Supposing we start in April, so for the first month, I'm trying out different strategies, and then I stick to it for the next 8 months. And will it work for me this year at least? Which I did
Hmm.
do last year. I wrote half the amount of mocks last year in 1 month, and still I scored pathetically.
Yeah. Fair. Hello. Over to you, Devvrat. You can start presenting your PPT. One more thing, if we have leverage of time. So, what was your reaction when the final list NLU list came out? Because everyone was expecting that you'll get into NLS. Like your rank was 104 last year. The cutoffs were not that high, and
Exactly, it was
like
around
I,
100.
I remember Uday Suvaraman got a rank of 107 and he got into NLS. So everyone was basically expecting you to get into NLS given the increased seats as well. So how did you deal with that aspect of class?
Well, first of all, it was a when I first saw the list, 104, I was absolutely, I was so happy I started jumping.
Yeah.
And, well, then the usual drama came. I hugged everyone and we were all very happy. And then I talked to you, I texted Aditya, everybody said
Hmm.
it's NLS. Then the
Yeah.
first list came, I got Nalsar,
Yeah.
missed it by 4 places. And still, then the second and
Still.
third,
Hmm.
still no change, nobody left. Even after the IELTS results came. So I was
Hmm.
sad for a moment, but then I was rather confused. I mean, Nalsar is a great college,
Hmm.
but NLS has the tag of being the best college in India.
Yeah.
And there's also additional advantage for me in Nalsar.
Nalsar.
I'm eligible for the Aditya Birla scholarship that
Definitely.
India.
Yeah.
So that was that, and I had to choose. I mean, I still have a fair bit of chance of getting into NLS because there's only 1% ahead of me.
This one, oh, so last list closed at 103.
Yeah, actually, someone left NLS, and the guy who was at 102, Shauryavi, he got into NLS.
Oh,
So yeah,
right.
it will be reflected in the fourth list. So there's only 1% ahead
So
of
you're
me.
still keeping your preference like open, floating. You haven't closed it yet.
I haven't yet
Okay. Okay.
finished it. I have
Huh.
finished it till the third list. Let's see in the fourth. Maybe I'll freeze it then.
Right. Chalo.
Yeah, so it's a disappointment, but
Hmm. But
Nalsar
see, but it's okay now. You are at least eligible to get your college education free of cost, and if you get the scholarship. Yeah.
almost yes.
Yeah. Almost. Yeah. Right. You can present the screen. I'll be leaving the session. You can end it after you are done. No
Sure,
need to click on record or anything. It will get automatically recorded.
got it.
Yeah.
So can anybody confirm?
It's a blank screen for now.
Okay, uh, give me a
So
minute.
it's asking you to sign in now. Yeah.
Yeah, I guess I haven't logged in quite some time.
It's okay. It's okay. Take your time. They will talk a little bit about sleep schedule also because we get a lot of messages. How many hours should we sleep? Should we sleep in the afternoon? Are 10 hours enough for a dropper because we don't have school or anything? So do talk about all these little things also that can make a huge
So
difference. Yeah.
it's one of my points I'll be talking about because CLAT isn't like JW where you have to prepare 12, 14 hours a
Yeah.
day.
Hmm.
Yeah, I'll start now. Yeah, is it visible now?
Yes, it's visible.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so first we'll start with the general questions. So the first point is we'll be counting days from today. That is 9 months we have left at CLAT 2025. So at least according to me, 9 months are more than enough for CLAT. Even 6 months of serious preparation would be enough. And like most of you would have completed your boards a few days ago. I also did started preparing for CLAT only just after my board, of course, after a certain period of vacation. And yeah, so 9 months is enough. So there's no worries about that. And the other point that Anish was talking about, that how many hours we should sleep, it matters. It has no point. I mean, you can sleep 12 hours a day. According to me, only you need to study only for 6 hours a day. CLAT is more of a marathon, and it's not at all strenuous. If you study 6 hours a day and then use however you want to, uh, it's not that big of a deal. So 10 hours, 12 hours, 8 hours, whatever is fine by you. That's at least, and that is the same thing that my mentor Aditya Bhargav told me. Now, the other point, mindset and dealing with anxiety. As I was talking earlier, mindset. CLAT, according to me, is in most parts a mind game. Like you have to prepare for so many months, 9 months, with a seemingly unending syllabus in GK, because GK is never going to stop. It's gonna come at you from all the directions, and you'll have to deal with it. Then you have to attempt the test, and CLAT will surprise you, and that's a given. Like it surprised us this year. Um, so yeah, and how to deal with anxiety while preparing. There's two virtues I suppose you need to inculcate in yourself. There are patience and moderation. So as I said, you have to deal with things in a very slow pace, 6 hours a day, but every day. If you're giving mocks, give 2 mocks a week in the starting few months, but you need to give it every week in and out. It's only if you do that, if you put gaps in between of your preparation, it makes no sense. It's almost a given that if you take gaps in between, where you don't study for say a month, 2 months, there's going to be a lot of GK backlog. Your quant isn't going to be practiced every day, and you're not going to practice any legal or anything. So that's going to harm you. And dealing with anxiety, as I quoted James Clear earlier, fall in love with the process quote. So that's the thing. You could try meditation. I personally, to deal with the stress, you either move out or you just redirect your mind from away from the things that have been bothering you. Go to the gym, go for a walk, anything. It's very easy to deal with anxiety these days. And yeah, it's again upon your mindset, man. If there are always going to be challenges. There were times when my parents were questioning me whether or not I was studying. Yeah. And I'm sure everybody and most of your parents will do that. So you need to be sure enough, you need to be strong enough to deal with it and tell them that I'm preparing, I'm giving my best. And we'll see after December, we'll see in January what happens. Now, mocks and their analysis. Mocks and its analysis is by far the most important thing that you can do for preparing CLAT. Giving mocks is like you getting used to the pattern of the test, and you'll get used to the questions, especially in NLTI mocks. NLTI was by far the closest. LE was sometimes a bit harder, sometimes a bit lower, and the rest of the ones I did, CLAT possible and others, they were a bit on a lower level compared to CLAT. Not this year at least, but yeah. So you could do NLTI mocks and also sectionals. Sectionals are very necessary for practicing when you're not doing mocks. Suppose in this week you have 5 days, 5 work days, and a weekend. Leave the weekend for the current month. Leave the weekend. Do whatever you want. For the 5 days, take two mocks. One on a Wednesday, one on a Friday. You still have 3 days left. Monday, Tuesday, and Thursday. Do sectionals. Do English sectional. Do RC sectional, and do a Quant sectional. That way, you're still not out of touch with CLAT, and you getting your working, but also you're not stressed enough, and you can do whatever you want. You can work on other things. You can read more, which will help you in solving English and RC, of course. Yes. Now the number of mocks. Uh, Personally, I did two mocks a week till about 5 months were left. And of course, you need to do it from different sources. If you're doing one NLTI mock, you need to do one LE mock or one CLAT prep mock, etc. So that so that you're not habituated to one kind of questions. Humans are you'll form a pattern of questions. Like NLTI will form a certain kind of questions. CLAT prep will form a certain kind of questions. So you need to expand your base. Now, the number of mocks for a dropper, I personally did around 120, 110 mocks in the whole 9 months that I prepared for. But anything about 75, 80 for a dropper is enough. I mean, that gives you a certain edge over the normal people, the normies. Uh, yeah, as I said, three a week after only 3 months are left. And in the last month, we were recommended that we do 5 mocks a week or 4 mocks a week. That's enough. But the main point of attempting a mock is to analyze it. You could give hundreds of mocks, but if you don't analyze them, it will be worth nothing. I mean, you get the same score again and again. So for analyzing, how I analyzed was, I'll show you. Uh, yeah. So this is a review and analysis of my mock 17 of NLTI. So these were the scores I got. Yeah, pretty pathetic. But what I did was I wrote I wrote the number of questions which I got wrong in a series. Then I analyzed what went wrong in the questions. Like in the question number 2, there was wrong meaning of word. Question 6, understood wrongly, inference incorrectly. I don't know the meaning of something. Then there's tones, etc. So that's how you analyze. You first analyze how many questions you got wrong. Then you write them in a column, and on the other side of the column, you write why you got them wrong. Then I suppose you form another column where you write what will you change in your strategy of how you'll attempt a mock, so that all of these mistakes that you did in this mock could be solved. Like I have to revise tones, expand vocabulary. I'll discuss that in English. Uh, then in GK, well, GK is pretty basic. You'll know it or you won't. So this is how you analyze a mock. And I wrote this for all the 120 mocks I did. Maybe not the first 10, but for the next 110 mocks, I wrote on a piece of paper. I wrote all the questions I got incorrect. So this is how you analyze a mock. And then suppose I'm inferencing something incorrectly again and again. So it used to happen to me that in English, if I did English first, I would lack in logical. So I kept English last. And what I did was I set up a sequence where I read one passage, where there was a passage section, maybe English, then you do a GK one because GK gets your mind thinking, a logical one, then another legal one, then you do Quant so that your mind's freshen up because it's a 2 hour exam. Somebody's mic's open, I suppose. Okay, thanks. Yeah, so it's a 2 hour exam. So you're going to get sleepy. I drank coffee before giving any mock, so that helped. So that your mind doesn't get bored, you you set up a sequence, at least I did, so that I keep paying attention. One passage based where I have to read, then one logical again and again. And that way, all my problems of analysis were getting solved, as I mentioned here. Now, to the next point, boards and CLAT together. Well, we don't have to, so I guess I made a mistake here. Focus on increasing accuracy. As we all know, the pattern changed this year, last year, I'm sorry. Before that, we had 150 questions in which, well, the more you did, the more marks you would be able to get. But this year, you have 120, and anyone worth their salt preparing for CLAT must be able to answer all the 120 questions. If not answer, at least you have to attempt them. Because without that, you're just leaving marks on the table. So your focus should be on increasing accuracy or your hit ratio. The more your hit ratio is, by definition, you're going to get more marks. You can increase your accuracy by only one way. That is by doing more mocks and analyzing them. That is the basic tenet of CLAT. At least that's what I understood from my preparation. Mocks and its analysis and changing your strategy. Sometimes if you're getting low marks in maths, you pay attention to solving more questions of quants and etc. So now we'll start topic wise. We'll start with English. Yeah, English language. We all know 450 word passages. So average human reads 238 words a minute, and so that would suppose we would read the whole passage in 2 minutes roughly. That leaves us with what, only 3 minutes to answer all the 5 questions. That's frankly not enough. So we need to increase our reading speed. And how do we do that? We'll read newspapers. I didn't like newspapers very much because they were too cluttered, and the editorials were frankly very boring. So I picked up magazines. You can find magazines on Telegram for free. There are hundreds of magazines. You'll find Down to Earth. Hell, you could even read Vogue just for the sake of reading it, but only for a certain time. Like read it for an hour or 2 hours a day. That's enough. That gets your mind going, and of course, you will have to analyze the things you're reading. You need to understand them because that's the basic point of reading these. The next point is tones, themes, and literary devices. CLAT until last year, these were a very tricky kind of questions that CLAT used to ask. Tones, themes. You only understand tones and themes after you've read the passages, of course. And literary devices, we all know, you'll have to make up a list, you'll have to learn. What I personally did was I took a notebook. What is it, Bhaiya? Which magazine is good to read? Give me a minute. I still have those magazines with me. I'll check Telegram. So anyways, I can't get you right now. So on Telegram, you can get Down to Earth. You can get India Today. Most of the main publishers, they give a magazine or two, and you can find, I'll give a link if you want. I'll give it to Anish for the Telegram group. You can get magazines on there. Back to the point. Yeah, tones, themes, and literary devices. So what I did was, in a notebook, I wrote all the literary devices there were in our world. Like literally there were around 50 something, and I used to revise them every day. Why? Because the more I'll revise them, the more I'll use them, the more I'll get habituated to them. And more easily, I'll be able to pick them out from the passages. And that randomness is exactly what gets literary device questions very hard. And those 1 or 2 marks can make a huge difference. Like this year itself, AR38, who's a friend of mine, he's from Vadodara too. He got 1.75 marks more than me, but he got into NLS. And a guy I know from the same city, he got 0.75 marks lesser than me, but he got into NUJS. So that's the thing. Even 1 or 2 marks in this exam will matter because it's a 120 mark exam now. So I can show you a photo of the literary devices. Yeah, can you see it? Yeah. So I wrote out the literary devices, the allegories, and used to revise allegory, alliteration, anaphora. I used to revise them every day. Got it? So this is how you do it. If you can't revise them every day, do it weekly. But the more you revise, you get in touch with it. Yeah. Now the next point is approaching the passage. So there are two ways to approach any passage-based question. Either you can first read the whole passage, which is a 450 word passage, which is going to be incredibly hard to remember every point that is made in the passage when by the time you reach the question. So what I personally did was glance through the questions first, pick out the keywords, and then start reading the passage. That way, your mind will automatically pick out those certain sentences in which the answer to those questions lie. So that way, it will it will save you a lot of time, because then you won't have to reread the passage, and that is where most people will lose out, because the more you reread the passage, it's a waste of time. So first glance through the questions, then go on to the passages, and yeah, then it's upon how much you can understand and answer the questions. Sectionals. As I said, practicing sectionals on the days that you don't give mocks is extremely helpful, because well, sectionals, the more you practice, the thing with passage based questions is that the more you get in touch with these passage based, like I personally use GMAT, as I mentioned in the slide. I used GMAT guide, and then there was also an LSAT book by Princeton Review that I used to use. Those books are amazing. I mean, you can literally find the breaking. You could the analytical reasoning part of this. You can find the basic theory through which you must attempt these questions. So GMAT guide is an amazing piece of work. You should use it if you're able to. And workbooks. I'm sure some of you know that any and other give out workbooks. They're not very helpful, but if you don't have anything else to practice from, Ellie does help a bit. I mean, it's good for practice, but you shouldn't stick to it, just Ellie. Now, reading different genres. As we all know, these passages, they're not from the same thing. Like this year itself, if we pick out English language, one was about the interplay of dance and characters and settings. I'm supposing it's from a prose. Then the other one was a crisis of justice. So one's from editorial to justice and two ideas of India, and another one's a more literary kind of a passage. So you need to read different genres. The more genres you read, the more your mind will be expanded. So my mentor Aditya, he made us read. First, you should read psychology. You should sometimes read philosophy. Sometimes core economics. You won't understand anything, but the very basic terms, the more you read them, you get used to them, and those they will help in case passage from economics comes or psychology comes. It's not necessary to understand what the passage is about, but what it is talking about, that is necessary. So reading different genres, you could read books, magazines, articles. You could read it from bar and bench, almost anything you could get your hands on. So that was about English language. Yeah, we'll move on to the next slide. General knowledge, bane of many people's existence. Well, as we all know, it destroyed many people's CLAT preparations this year, considering how stupid questions were asked. Uh, Luckily for me, I knew the answers to those. Like one question which I found extremely stupid was the full name of General Dyer. I mean, how are you supposed to know that? But as I mentioned, NLTI rank booster actually had this question. and I remembered it that it was Reginald Edward Harry. So that 1 mark made a difference for me in the exam, which surely helped. So GK, basically GK is all about what you put it day in and day out. You got to make. I at least made notes every day because CLAT has expanded. At first, it used to ask very basic GK, like what's happening on Twitter. I still read Twitter because, well, like last to last year, I remember it asked about Elon Musk's son. His name was asked, Vladimir Zelensky's name was asked, and other things. So you can't get this on, say, GK Today or on any compendiums. You won't find it there. So glancing through Twitter once or twice is nice. Yeah, make notes every day. Making notes helps you keep in touch. So it will help you in revising when the exam is getting nearer. So you will have monthly. So I made 5, 6 notebooks and I termed them monthly. So that if I made notes of January, it will have from day one, from 1st January to 30th. And I made notes of it every day. I actually was part of this GK coaching. It was called Excel with Nikhil. My mentor recommended it, and he used to take classes every day at night, and that helped a lot. So I made notes of that and my own notes from the mentioned resources. GK Today, it gives you quizzes every day, and they're pretty nice. They helped a lot in mocks at least. Drishti IAS, it also publishes. No, Drishti IAS does not publish. Drishti IAS helps in forming the basic groundwork, the static part of the GK that you could get from Drishti IS, because it has in-depth articles. Like suppose you have the Vande Bharat, so you will find quizzes of Vande Bharat on GK Today. But to understand that it has a Kavach system, that was a question that was asked in an NLTI mock. That is mentioned on Drishti, I guess. So you could use that. But it is very necessary that you stick to only a few sources, 2 or 3, because the more sources you'll use. Like I had a friend who used at least 5 or 6. He used 4 different coaching compendiums and one internet site, and that clashed it because he's getting the same information again and again, and in that some kind of information got left in between that harmed him in the exam. So stick to a few sources and but stick to it the whole year. Continue it. Then comes revision, where we all know general knowledge. You won't remember it. Nobody can, at least after a day or a week. So what can we do to prevent that? We shall read it every day. If not every day, we shall read it every week. I had this process of revising things. If I read something in GK today, suppose it's a Monday, I read it today, I wrote it today, then I'll revise it on a Sunday. So a week's work is done. I'll revise whatever I've done in that week on a Sunday. Whatever I have done in that particular month or through the 4 weeks, I'll do that on the last day of the month. And then again after 2 months or 3 months, when the exam is near. That way you'll keep on revising again and again, twice or thrice. That way you won't forget information which is crucial. Then comes the NLTI rank booster. NLTI rank booster is around 1,000 pages. It's this thick, and we had so many questions in that. But it definitely helped, as I said earlier about the Reginald Edward Harry Dyer, the name. It helped a lot. For the backlog of the previous months, I personally don't think it would matter much because the most of the GK questions that are going to be asked in 2025, they'll be focusing on the last 6 months before the exam. And don't think that they won't ask questions from December, because they did from 2023. They actually asked questions from the FIFA World Cup, which was still going on in December. So for the last 6 months, you must prepare them. In case you need to clear the backlog of the previous months, you can use NLTI's GK Gazette and MIT's. They publish it every month. The MIT is basically most important topics that you can list down and then research on them in depth. And GK Gazette is just like any other compendium. If you're using LE, stick to LE, or stick to GK Gazette, whatever, it's upon you. And as I said, priority of GK should be of 6 months before the test, because that's where the meat will lie. That's where the most questions will come from, like the Gaza war, etc., etc. Now, on to legal reasoning. Legal reasoning is pretty amazing because it's a very easy subject, to be honest. I got I got only one wrong this year. I got 38.75. Yeah, out of 40. So yeah, the main book to build my basic foundation for legal reasoning was LALR by AP Bharadwaj. It for me at least, it was an amazing book. I suppose it has one part, and then there's another legal reasoning book by AP Bharadwaj for questions. So I bought those two books, and LALR has amazing theory in the starter. So I wrote it all down, the theory, and I used to revise it every day. It's not necessary because in time you'll get used to this concept. But what it helped me with theory was that the more you know the theory, like suppose you know what is a tort, what is a criminal offense. I have a sheet here in which I wrote the legal terms. The same book, like act of God, actus reus, adjudication. These will help you in understanding the legal passages far better than just doing it, just doing the mocks or the sectionals. No doubt, you'll get the hang of it, but this makes it a bit more logical while preparing. Yeah. So as I said, in legal reasoning, or in fact any part of CLAT, practice is the key. You should do LALR by AP Bharadwaj. You should write the theory, at least I did, and then complete all the questions. It's a fun book. You'll have fun while doing it. Take it up as a challenge and get through with it. Practice, you should do sectionals, as I mentioned earlier, sectionals, mocks, sectionals. That way you won't get burned out, because you'll have, unlike your peers who are still in 12th, you'll have to do it the whole day. So practicing, uh, you can read legal articles from bar and bench, even though they won't help much, but it's nice to read them. Mm. You can read legal editorials concerning the constitution for the sake of it. Those get you in touch with the legal passages. Though considering this year's paper, there weren't any particularly legal passages. They were concerning legal issues, but they were all of well, more of a reasoning kind of a question. As I said, you need to build your theoretic base first, because legal is different from English, because you already know English. You can understand it very well. But legal concepts you'll need to understand. And for that, as I mentioned, use LALR. I I did a lot of books, but after doing much of it, like I did Ellie's workbooks, they didn't help at all. I mean, they were so vague and out of the context. I abhorred them by the time I was done with them. So stick to that book. Build a theoretic base first. It will only help in solving the mocks faster and easier. Because I remember I used to get in the 95th percentile in legal reasoning mocks every time, because I did LALR. Sectionals and mocks, the same pattern that I mentioned earlier. Sectional, mock, sectional. You won't get bored. Everything's jolly well. Now, how do you approach legal reasoning? Again, you first read the questions, but by definition, you will have to reread the passage. So make sure, rather than reading every single word, skip through the fillers. Read only the keywords, because you'll be bound by time. It's a race against time while maintaining your hit ratio. So if you have to read it, you have to reread it, just glance through it. And if you don't want to do LALR, I suggest Legal Panacea on Graphy by NLTI. Uh, that's an excellent resource. There are three Panaceas: LALR, I'm supposing RC, not LALR, RC Panacea, Legal Panacea, and GK Panacea. You could use those three. They helped a lot, basically in forming, as I mentioned earlier, the theoretic base. So you should use Legal Panacea. On to the next one, logical reasoning. Uh, it's rather basic, to be honest, logical reasoning, even though it didn't go so well for me. Logical reasoning is just like English. I mean, almost similar to English. Just the fact is that the questions will be a lot more in detail. They will engage your mind a lot more than English passages will. And for that, the books I've mentioned, LSAT prep book, by you can use either Manhattan Prep or Princeton Review. I had both. I preferred the Princeton one. It is an amazing book. Um, it, as I said, just like in the GMAT guide, it breaks down analytical and verbal reasoning that you're going to use in the logical reasoning part. Then it builds from the ground up, and it has amazing questions. Like the level of questions that are in the LSAT book could never be in the in CLAT, but they familiarize you with understanding the concepts so well, it will help you indefinitely in CLAT. Then, as I mentioned, you could either use LSAT prep book or NLTI CR Panacea. CR Panacea is just like legal Panacea. I did it. I find CR Panacea by far the most helpful resource, like in theory, provided by NLTI. It's so detailed and so effective. It literally, it's like there's someone helping you solve the questions. So you should definitely visit CR Panacea once just to look at it if you're not buying it then. Then, yeah, Khan Academy's LSAT prep course. If you want to clear GLAD's logical reasoning, I insist, I, I'm forcing you that you should go through Khan Academy's LSAT prep course once. It is so detailed, and I can't describe it in words how helpful it is while solving logical reasoning. I remember there are 24 questions in logical reasoning, and I used to get around 12 or 13 before I did this LSAT prep course on Khan Academy. And later, just the next mock after completing this course, I was scoring in 19 and 20. So that's how helpful it is. You know, I insist that you visit Khan Academy. If you don't use anything, you should definitely use Khan Academy's prep course. GMAT guide, of course, I said earlier, it provides both help for English and logical reasoning. Now, on the mental side of things, logical reasoning is inherently boring. I found very boring because it's the same thing. What are you reading? What are you understanding? Then you are the central theme. What is the word symbolize? So make sure there's no tunnel vision while solving it. Like there's no one way. What you learn while preparing CLAT is, and when you discuss your paper with your friends while discussing the answers, is that there's no one way at looking at any question, especially in legal and logical. So so what do you do to avoid tunnel vision? One is you read more, and other is you discuss it with your friends if possible. You discuss it with your, like we had study groups that had been assigned to us from NLTI. So if you're solving an NLTI paper, I used to there was a friend of mine called Varsha. We used to discuss every mock. We used to do it almost every day. That it provided me with certain insights into approaching a question in either legal or logical. Like how I thought was not how she thought. And that helped me in considering. Like, I remember 3 or 4 questions in which I was confused. I had to force myself to think in another way to get the correct answer. So, avoid tunnel vision by solving and discussing papers with your friends, or just keep on doing it till you get another viewpoint on the question, because mostly you will never be right if the question is wrong. Okay, now we have logical. Now we have quantitative aptitude. For me personally, it was by far the easiest section out of all five because I'm a math student. But anyways, it can be easy for anybody. It has only 12 questions, and they are usually very easy. The information is literally given in the passage, or there are tables from which you just have to pull the information and put it in the calculation. The calculation part is where the trick starts. The calculation, every year, the calculations have been so hectic and long that you won't be able to complete it. And that's their modus operandi, to make the calculation so long, but the question's easy. So what I suggest is you should increase your speed of calculation. You will have to do it. Like there's this R.S. Agrawal book I remember. Uh, I don't have it currently. Yeah, so R.S. Agrawal book, I had it. It had like 2,000 something questions on a lot of topics: upstream, downstream, ratio and proportion, all the things that are going to come in quant. I am supposing you all know what the syllabus for quant is. There are only four major topics. And the good thing is it has all the applicable formulas given on the first page, which what I did is I wrote the formulas, I learned them, and then I started attempting the questions. And it has a lot of exercises which will familiarize yourself with the question, that any question that can be asked by CLAT. CLAT will ask you only questions till class 10th level, right? They won't ask you higher questions like um, uh, I forgot the word. Anyways, the level is going to be low. You need to practice every day. What I did was I sat for 2 hours because we are droppers. So droppers have a lot of time. So what I did was I took the book. It's a thick, very thick ass book, and I did it for 2 hours every day. It's very boring, but you'll have to go through it, and because there's no other choice. It's very comprehensive, so you don't need to worry about looking outside. And basic formulas and shortcuts, as my earlier toppers mentioned, basic formulas and shortcuts should be written in a book and revised daily, because that will help you a lot in the long run, just like if you revise the tones and themes and literary devices every day, because you're going to master it if you do it every day, and that will only make your speed of calculation faster. It will increase it, and that is how you will crack quantitative. There's no need to worry about quantitative aptitude. I assure you, it is going to be very easy if you go through your questions, if you go through the syllabus and practice it. It's going to be very easy. You just need to be quick enough to calculate. That's been the modus operandi of CLAT for quant for past 3 or 4 years at least. And that is what I understood from the past year papers. Uh, Want and now doubts. Yes, this is the interesting part. Now, one by one, you can each open your mics. You can unmute yourselves and ask if you have any doubts. Yeah, please. There's no need to raise your hand. You can just open your.
Um, Actually, yeah, I'm having doubt in GK, like how to make notes and which are the best sources to make notes. Like as you said about Drishti IAS, but according to me, like it is too vast.
It is too
And
hard. You don't need to make notes from Drishti IS. You need to read it. You need to understand it. If you want to make notes, uh, I remember this also. It is also a IAS coaching. It publishes a PDF every day. It has,
Vision IAS,
yeah, which one?
Vision IAS.
Vision publishes. I used to read that every morning. It was fun. So I used to read it every day, and whichever topics I found that could be asked by CLAT, I wrote them down in my book. And then I said I had Excel with Nikhil, so that helped me a lot.
And भैया like there are two compendiums of GK today. One is of theory and one is of MCQ. So like according to you, which one is better?
As I understand, the theory one has a lot of topics, right?
Yes, भैया.
Yeah, so I suppose you will need to be very selective about that, because in starting of my preparation, what mistake I made was I wrote each and every one of the 50 or say 70 topics that were, and my whole book was filled in a month. So that's a very stupid way to go about things. What you should do is be selective about it. The more mocks you'll give, you'll understand what kind of questions they're going to ask. So be selective about it and mostly stick to the quizzes. The quizzes are rather on point about the current affairs.
And भैया like actually I have a doubt. Do I have to make handwritten notes or should I print them and just mark on the print itself?
It's all about you, man. I mean, I hand wrote them. There's no necessity. For a few months, I just put them on the notes app on my phone or my laptop, and it worked for me. So there's no need to handwrite everything. You can print them out. If I didn't find it very convenient to get 100 or 200 pages printed, because you'll have to brute force it. बिकॉज पहले तुम अपने टॉपिक सिलेक्ट करोगे, फिर तुम्हें वर्ड में डालोगे, फिर तुम प्रिंट कराने जाओगे। इतने में मैं तो सब कुछ लिख चुका हूँगा, और तुम जो लिखोगे ना, वो बाय डेफिनेशन तुम्हारे मन में छप जाएगा। ठीक है, सो यू विल रिमेम्बर इट फॉर अ लॉन्गर पीरियड ऑफ टाइम। इट्स ऑल अपॉन यू अगेन।
And भैया have you given like A-Let?
आई डिड गिव इट। आई गॉट
Like
700 something rank, man, because I knew how good I had performed in CLAT, that I gave eyelid just like how children play, just for the sake of it.
okay, and भैया last doubt like I am a dropper. I took drop this year and like दिनचर्या कैसी होनी चाहिए like daily routine कैसा होना चाहिए of
दिनचर्या
a dropper?
दिनचर्या
Yeah.
देखो तुम्हारे ऊपर है। हम है ना, हमें सुबह उठना बहुत पसंद है, ठीक है। तो हम सुबह 3 बजे उठ के पढ़ते थे, और दिन में फिर हम क्या करते थे। तुम मैं सुबह 3 बजे उठा, 3 बजे उठ के मैं जीके किया 3 से 5 के बीच में। जीके के कल के नोट्स बनाए मैंने, टॉपिक सिलेक्ट किए और वो रिवाइज किए। ठीक है, फिर 5 बजे मैं जिम चला जाता था। 7 बजे आए, तुम अपनी दिनचर्या करो, ब्रश करो, तुम मतलब ब्रश नहीं, ऑफ कोर्स यू बेथ, देन यू विल हैव ब्रेकफास्ट एटसेट्रा। तब तक 8 बज जाते थे। देन यू स्टार्ट विद द बेसिक वन, यू स्टार्ट विद इंग्लिश, देन यू skip to maths, then you do logical, और ऐसे हो जाता था। देन बाय लंच आई वाज कंप्लीटली एग्जॉस्टेड, तो मैं कोई बुक पढ़ने लगता था। आई हैड लॉट ऑफ बुक्स इन एट माय होम, तो मैं बुक्स पढ़ो तुम, if that's what you want, read magazines, as I mentioned earlier. You could read magazines, and yeah, that's enough, to be honest. इतना पढ़ने की जरूरत ही नहीं है एग्जाम में। तुम कम पढ़ो, पर तुम हर रोज पढ़ो।
एंड भैया लाइक सेक्शनल समय लाइक हमारे 4 मेन सेक्शंस होते हैं
हाँ,
क्वांट और 3 रीडिंग के। लाइक मुझे ऑल्टरनेटिव दे पे लाइक मैंने क्वांट और लीगल आज दे लिया, इंग्लिश और लॉजिकल कल दे लिया, या चारों को एक साथ दूं
नहीं नहीं,
एक दिन में?
कोई भी जो तुम्हें ठीक लगे। लाइक देखो, तुम ड्रॉपर हो, मैं भी ड्रॉपर था। मैटर इज कि यू विल गेट बोर्ड वाइल प्रिपेयरिंग। तुम इतना बोर हो जाओगे ना, तुम पूरे दिन कुछ नहीं करोगे। सो if someday you're feeling low and you think that your intellectual capacity has been breached, तो फिर तुम एक मॉक दे, 2 मॉक दे, एक दो सेक्शनल दे, बस चलेगा। और if someday you feel like हाँ आज तो मेरे में जोश है, फिर give 4 sectionals। तो देयर इज नो सेट पैटर्न कि मैं हर रोज 2 ही दूंगा, या हर रोज ये लीगल या जीके दूंगा। गॉट इट?
यस भैया, थैंक यू।
एनी मोर डाउट्स? एनीबॉडी एल्स? Really, no doubts?
Hello.
Yeah, hi.
Can you suggest some books that when we feel low, we can read? to divert our mind. Like you said, Atomic Habits. I make a note of it and I
So
surely
it's
read
a very,
read.
yeah, it's not a book that will help you calm your mind or help you divert your attentions. So वो
But it
concentration वाली book.
can motivate or inspire
Yeah,
besides.
motivation and inspire. You can read autobiographies. I never found autobiographies helpful. To divert my mind, I always found that novels work best because they take you into their own world and you feel re-energized after reading a good novel. So, like this is a novel. It's called A Gentleman in Moscow. It's recently been adapted on Amazon Prime. It's an amazing book. तुम पढ़ लिए पूरे दिन, तुम्हारा दोपहर शाम हो गई, then read 2 or 3 chapters. You could read novels. You could. Some people prefer to read fashion magazines. I had a friend who read fashion magazines just for the sake of it. Um, Autobiographies. Um, I never read autobiographies. I can suggest fiction if you want. I can suggest Nietzsche or maybe read Kafka, but those are depressing books. So read them at your own peril. Yeah. So it's upon you again. See, it's not a set exam कि हम इतना इतना करेंगे तो हमारा हो जाएगा. It's a it's a bespoke. You know how suits are made. The tailor takes the measurements and then it's made around you. This exam is just like that. You have to change yourself. What is comfortable to you? What works for you? See, autobiographies and motivation might work for you. My motivation was how much I was going to the gym or how much I was being able to run or being able to read. That was my motivation. Your motivation could be entirely different.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. Any other doubts
एंड
from
भैया लाइक आपका एवरेज स्टडी टाइम कितना होता था एक दिन में?
on an average day? It used to be around 5-6 घंटे दिन के.
अच्छा, फिर भैया और क्या करते थे, लाइक मूवी एंटरटेनमेंट ऐसा कुछ?
हाँ बिल्कुल. एक दिन ऐसा नहीं था जहाँ मैं नेटफ्लिक्स पे घूमता नहीं था. नेटफ्लिक्स देखो, अमेजॉन, मैंने पूरे साल के सब सब्सक्रिप्शन ले रखे थे. तो क्योंकि ये एग्जाम निहायत ही बोरिंग एग्जाम है क्योंकि तुम्हें पूरे दिन पढ़ना है. So you're going to get exhausted. Use it wisely, but only after. Like my friend, actually, he's in IIT Bombay right now. He has a concept. You set a target for the day in the morning, you complete it, and afterwards you do whatever you want, and you tell that to your parents. Like my parents agreed. मैं क्या करता था, मैं गेम खेल लेता था. मेरा पढ़ना हो गया, मैंने रीडिंग भी कर ली, तो टीवी उठाओ, GTA 5 चालू करो, खेलने लगो.
ओके, एंड भैया लाइक एक लास्ट डाउट था, आपने कहाँ से कोचिंग ली थी?
मैंने ब्रो सेल्फ कोचिंग किया था एक NLTI का, क्योंकि मेरे को रिसोर्सेज तो चाहिए सिर्फ, बाकी मैं खुद ही करने वाला था. क्योंकि आई personally I found it rather waste of money and time. I had CLAT possible here at my hometown, and I didn't have LE. So I found it a waste of resources to join a coaching for CLAT, which is not even a resource or a teaching based exam. It's completely a practice based exam. वो तो मैं घर बैठ के भी कर सकता हूँ. तो एक NLTI का लिया था और बाकी ये GK के लिए एक्सेल विद निखिल नाम का लिया था. वो दोनों मेरे लिए बहुत सही काम कर गए. Those were enough for me.
एंड
Yeah.
भैया लाइक एक बार आप मॉक कर बता दो, लाइक एलई के अलावा कौन से अच्छे हैं जो मैं दे सकूं?
एली के पता है एक पेडेस्टल पे थे. लोगों को एली हार्ड लगता था, ठीक है, हमारे टाइम पे एटलीस्ट. अभी लगता हो पता नहीं, बट एली वाज कंसिडर्ड टू बी हार्ड एंड आई डिडंट फाइंड इट वेरी हार्ड टू बी ऑनेस्ट. तुम एक बार ये सब प्रैक्टिस करने लगोगे ना, इट्स नॉट वेरी हार्ड. एंड द रेस्ट ऑफ द मॉक एली वाज तो भी ठीक है. एनएलटी वाज गुड. ओके, एनएलटी मेड यू थिंक. कभी कभी, एंड आई एम सेइंग वेरी रेयरली, क्लैट प्रेप मेड गुड मॉक्स, ones that you would be happy after solving. कि हाँ मेरे को कोई चैलेंज मिला है. बाकी सारे आई फाउंड देम मतलब काफी नीचे थे, नॉट अप टू द मार्क. 2-3 दिए थे मैंने हर एक के.
एंड लाइक भैया, लाइक अगर मैं आपसे रियलिटी पूछूं तो NLTI के मॉक
हम्म
अच्छे हैं, लाइक अगर मैं परचेज करूँ तो।
अच्छे हैं, डेफिनेटली दे आर चैलेंजिंग एंड दे आर लाइक, मैं उनके लिए इंटरव्यू दे रहा हूँ इसलिए नहीं बोल रहा, बट डेफिनेटली I found that NLTI was by far the most on point with the CLAT test papers ka, the format and the level of difficulty was almost as the same as NLTI. So that's why I chose NLTI. See, I asked around everybody. I chose LE, I chose CLAT Prep, CLAT Possible, सब देखा मैंने, और बाकी सारे mentorship वाले भी थे. But the best resources were provided by NLTI because the NLS students are giving it. So yeah, NLTI के मॉक्स मेरे को सही लगते हैं.
ओके
एंड
भैया।
और कोई कसर बच जाए तो फिर तुम एली के मॉक से खत्म कर देना.
यस भैया।
और तो भी कम पड़े तो प्रीवियस ईयर के मॉक कर दो. एली के प्रीवियस ईयर के मॉक दे दो, एनएलटीआई के प्रीवियस ईयर के मॉक दे दो.
लाइक वही देखो, SS तो है, लाइक सबका LPT का भी है, CL का भी है, टैली पे सब मिल जाता है
हम्म
इसलिए। ओके, तो लाइक भैया अगर मैं जीके के
एलपीटी भी
लिए।
कभी कभी अच्छे मॉक्स बनाता है.
कौन भैया?
एलपीटी
हाँ LPT भैया, और उन लेंदी बहुत होते हैं, लाइक अगर किसी कोचिंग के 40 पेज के होंगे तो उनके 70 पेज के होंगे।
एग्जैक्टली फिर वो क्लैट से मैच नहीं कर रहा ना, फिर तो
हाँ,
मतलब ही क्या रह गया.
लाइक भैया मेरे पास एक लास्ट और है, लाइक अगर मैं जीके के लिए क्लैट एक्सप्रेस और जीके टुडे करूँ तो इनफ है पूरे साल।
देख, तू कर, ठीक है,
हम्म,
फिर तू मॉक दे. तू कौन से
हम्म,
मॉक दे रहा है उस पर डिपेंड कर रहा है.
हाँ भैया।
अगर तेरे मार्क आ रहे हैं तो
हम्म,
मतलब कि वो काम कर रहा है.
हाँ
ठीक है.
भैया।
If that's working for you, stick to it. If that's not working for you, तू
हम्म,
अपना सोर्स चेंज कर ले. और तू ट्रायल एंड एरर करना.
हम्म,
The more trial and error you do, the more you'll figure out what works for you. That's all this exam is about.
ओके। ओके भैया, लाइक थैंक यू।
Okay. Ashwin, do you have any doubts? Oh, got it. So I think this is enough. LSAT book name, word power made easy. Word power made easy. And of course, the participant is not here, but I will still say it on record that Word Power made easy is a good book. If you have time, you should read it. But I didn't find it particularly helpful for CLAT. I mean, it increases your ability to use words and it gives you new words in your vocabulary, but it's not very on point, to be honest. Marks in CLAT. My marks in CLAT is 98.75. Uh,
क्या
yes,
एक्सेल विद निखिल की फीस कितनी थी?
self with Nihilgiri, 20K for the whole 9 or 12 months, I suppose. It decreased as time passed, and he gave backlog ka material also with that. So it's a bit pricey in the beginning, but it helps a lot. Like the GK section, it was so vague this year, but all of his compendiums and he also published a rank booster just like NLTI. Not as many. I took them both on the same pedestal. They both helped, to be honest. LSAT book name. LSAT book name. I'll provide it later. I don't have it currently. But yeah, it's somewhere else. But I can show you the GMAT if you want. Yeah, here's the GMAT book. This will help a lot in logical and English. And we have RS Agrawal, but RS Agrawal doesn't help much in logical. You can take the Quant book for that. Quantitative techniques or a book helps a lot. So yeah. So guys, if this is enough, should we end the meeting?
Yes, Bhaiya, thank you. Bye.
Okay, got it.